Welcome back and Happy New Year 2024. I hope you're rested, relaxed, and reflective on the year to come. Today's video, I want to take a little bit more of a laid back approach and looking back on the year of the photos, films, and cameras I shot, and as well as some thoughts and reflections on 2024. So welcome to my 2023 film photography year in review video. Now this video is going to focus on 6 main areas. First, I want to share, I have a film spreadsheet on Google Drive that has all the different films, all the different cameras, like what film stocks I shot, how many rolls, etc. that I want to share, and maybe you'll find that useful for your own purposes. Next, I'm going to show all the film stocks I shot this year on both 35 and 120 film. Next, I'll show all the different cameras that I shot with. And then I'm going to show my favorite 36 film photos of the entire year. The reason why 36 is mainly 2 reasons. One, I wanted to put the top 3 for each month, and I thought it'd be great to look at it from the perspective of if I had a single roll of film for the entire year, these are my favorites. Then I want to give a few reflections on the year and photography, film photography in general, as well as some plans for this year. So here I'm going to share my spreadsheet. All right, so here's my films I've shot Google spreadsheet. I actually have a pivot table here. I have the film type, black and white, color negative, color positive, and creative films. How many I've shot on 35, 120, and 220. And then that totals all the rolls, percentage of the rolls, and then unique rolls. Then I have brand, daylight, or tungsten, a couple other like here. But here's the actual list that I have on my spreadsheet. I have the roll shot, 35 millimeter, 120, 220 total, and then percent of total, film type, daylight or tungsten, because I shoot tungsten film, and then brand, and if it's available or not. I'm still kind of working on notes, another thing. But I have all these written down, how many different rolls I've shot of all the films, some color coding things. So I think I'm up to 95 or so unique films. Actually, I think it's 94. Yeah, 94 unique films. And then I've actually separated these by 35 millimeter shot by each year. So I'm kind of keeping track on each year that I'm shooting those films. And then 120, 220 medium format is all together. So this helps keep me organized so that I want to know like what films I've shot, what percentage. I don't know. I'm nerdy like that. So I like to know that stuff. Maybe it helps you to see something like this for your own organizational inspiration. Next, let's take a look at all the film stocks I shot this year. I shot 202 rolls in 2023. On 35 millimeter, I shot all these different films, a total of 110. Kodak Ultramax ended up being my most shot film for the year. It is my favorite consumer grade film on 35. I like the punchy colors, I like the saturation, and I've really enjoyed shooting it. My next top one is Kodak Ektar, is often one of my most frequently shot films. Followed by Cinestill 800T, it's my go-to at night. And then tied for kind of fourth is the last bit of my Fujichrome T64 Type 2, as well as some lomography turquoise. For 120 film, here are all the different films that I shot. I shot a total of 92 rolls on 120 film. As you can see, Kodak Gold was actually my top shot film last year, shortly followed by both Kodak Ektar and Fuji Pro 400H. This is the last of my stock, so I'm completely out of my favorite portrait film, Fuji Pro 400H. Next was Ilford XP2 Super 400. This is a black and white film that is processed as C41, so I love it for I think it's a great all-around black and white film that I've been shooting more and more often as I go on trips and just around Minnesota. And then tied for fourth, I have Cinestill 800T, Fujichrome Velvia 50, and lomography turquoise was another big one for this year. So now let me get into the cameras that I've shot this year. So on 35 millimeter, the two cameras that I own right now is the Nikon N80, which I will show right here. This is a great kind of modern SLR, and it is one of the last that Nikon made before digital. And I think it's a great camera. I have 3 of them. It is my go-to 35 millimeter camera because it's just it's very light. I used to own the F100, and that thing was just it's a beautiful camera. It's a great grip, a great, very professional camera, but this is way lighter, and I like how this operates. Next pickup, I actually picked this up recently this year, the Olympus XA2. This is a fantastic little point and shoot. I love this thing. I've actually owned the XA earlier this year, but I ended up kind of selling that. That goes for about $250. This goes for closer to $100. And what I like about it is the zone focusing. And I know you don't really get the manual controls that you get on the XA. For the intent and purpose of what I like about this camera is I just like it to as a point and shoot, like almost like a disposable, but just being able to quickly grab it, take a photo, and don't think about it. Okay, as far as a couple cameras that I had earlier in the year, but I ended up selling, one is the Minolta Talker, or Minolta AFSV. It's basically a point and shoot. It's a weird, quirky camera, but it actually takes good pictures. But it was just really loud and kind of obnoxious, so I ended up selling it. But I did share a video, I think on Instagram and TikTok, about that camera, and I shot an Odessa concert with it, and it turned the images turned out awesome. But ultimately, I love the XA2 way more because it's way more silent, and just I like the ergonomics and lightweightness and the quiet shutter and all that. And then I did own the XA earlier, as mentioned, but ended up selling it just because I wanted the more the intent of the camera was just a point and shoot, not think about it if I'm in that mode or mood. Next up are my medium format cameras I own. The first is the Fuji GW690. This is my favorite film camera. I love this thing. The images it creates, the lens is amazing. It's a 90mm lens, which equates to about a 40mm lens on 35mm. It's just renders beautiful images. I've owned every version of the Texas Leica series, and I mean, you can't go wrong with any of them because the most important component is this lens just produces beautiful images on both the GW and the GSW series. So next up is this fun one. It's the Lomo Lobatel 166 Universal. This is not the one that Lomography sells on their site. I think that one's called the 166 Plus, but it's an older one. I basically consider this kind of like a cheap point and shoot 120 camera. It actually produces pretty good images as long as you're not really dependent on super fine focusing. I mean, it's kind of clunky. Like if you just focus on like the infinity or a little bit less than that and do like an aperture of like f11, f8, it's a decent camera. It's good. Like if you want to get some medium format, if you don't want to worry about it getting damaged, because it was only about $100 or so. Now, next, I did have a couple of ones I kind of sold or previously owned and decided not to keep. One was actually the Fujifilm GW690 Mark III. I had that camera. I was deciding at the beginning of the year to kind of pare down, but I decided I missed it so much and I just couldn't let it go. So I ended up buying the 690, so the first version, for much less money. And again, like I said, I've owned all of them. I can't tell the difference. It's more of the function of the camera and the enjoyment of the experience. I do like the Mark II and Mark III models better, but the cost I got it at was way better than what, the Mark III series goes for $1,000 or more right now. I also had a Pentax 645. It was okay. I didn't like it. I've had the N and the N2 before. I liked those way more. But ultimately, I actually prefer mechanical cameras for medium format versus I like the more modern camera on my 35 millimeter camera because my shooting style is more run and gun on 35 millimeter. So I want good metering without thinking about it. Versus my GW, I'm way slower. I like to enjoy the process. So anyways, I sold the Pentax 645. I also sold the Zenza Bronica SQA. I've had multiple versions. I had the SQAI before. I've had the Bronica ETR SI. So this is a 6x6 camera. The ETR SI was a 645 camera. Great camera, and I love the ability to change lenses and change backs. But ultimately, I've pared down my medium format shooting to just the camera that I love to shoot on and the images, type of images I like to make. So great camera, but not for me anymore. All right, so now let me get into my favorite photos for 2023. So first, I'm going to share my top 3 photos of 2023 for each month. Here is Ilford Ortho Plus 80 on the Fuji GW690. I just loved the humps of snow here and this lake dock. Next up is this shot on CineStill 50D on that Lomo Lubitel 166. It was a very sunny day. I loved how the sun and someone walking, this is actually a lake, and someone walking, or it looks like doing some cross-country skiing too, maybe, and I loved how this turned out. This is a nearby ski hill, which I shot on some CineStill 800T and that Fuji GW690. Just loved how the lighting looked on this. So here's all 3 of them side by side, and obviously this is kind of the Instagram crop, and, you know, obviously there's the square format can sometimes take away from what I think is like the full picture, but these are the top 3, I think, for January. All right, so for February of 2023, here is my top 3. This is with Fujichrome T64 Type 2 tungsten-based slide film on Nikon N80. I loved how the snow was all like bluish purple and the lights of this house, it just kind of had almost this creepy look to it. Next up, this is the Loma Chrome Turquoise on that Lomo Lubitel 166. There's this building being deconstructed that I kind of documented a lot as it was happening, and this is by far my favorite shot from that. And then next up is this shot on Kodak T-Max 3200. I really liked, I shot quite a bit of this in the winter, and this is probably my favorite shot because I love the grain that comes of it and all the snow happening, so it makes it look extra snowy and gritty. So again, here are the top 3 favorites from February. For March 23, I have this shot on Kodak Gold 200 with the Pentax 645. I just liked how the golden light on the off the side of the image was. Now this is Flick Film Electra 100 on that Minolta Talker, and what I liked about this is apparently respooled Kodak Aerochrome, and it just had this weird kind of like greenish metallic look to it. It was my first roll shooting this, and I have a few more rolls I'm going to shoot a little bit more into 2024. This is Loma Chrome Turquoise on the Nikon N80. This is from a trip to kind of the Washington, D.C. area. I liked how the brown stones turned into this very turquoise color on this shot. So again, here are my top favorites for March. Now for April 2023, this is CineStill 400D on the Nikon N80. I love the halation on this. This was actually on April 1st, so you're like, April and all the snow. We had a huge snowstorm in Minnesota and got this huge dumping of snow, and I got to take a lot of photos of it. But I especially loved the halation on the background on this. This is another favorite image from that month, CineStill 800T of this really interesting car. I just love the look of it. It just feels like it's an image shot in the 70s. And then, of course, this is still April, and this is literally only 2 weeks later from that snow dumping shot. And again, very Minnesota. You see people in the lake swimming from the melting ice in the lake, and shot on the Fuji Color C200 on the Olympus XA. So again, my favorite shots of April. So my favorite 3 shots for May 2023, this is Lomochrome Purple. This is in Nashville, Tennessee, and shot on the Nikon N80. I love just how the purple and kind of turquoise of the reflections and the building and kind of the halation or like reflecting glass came from this shot. This shot was actually kind of a triptych I took of this in Utah, and it's the Lomochrome Turquoise, Kodak Ektar, and Kodak Gold kind of all put together of this same mountain on Nikon N80. And I just, I loved how you could see the differences of color in the shot. And then here's Ilford XP2. I had a polarizing filter on it, and I just loved how it brought out the skies in this and the clouds and this was shot on the Nikon N80. So again, these were my favorites from May. Now for June 2023, this is Kodak Portra 800, and this was a foggy, misty sunrise on Lake Superior. I just loved how the sun looked, how the whole sky looked from it, and one of my favorite shots from the year. This is Lomography Red Scale, and it was actually a very hazy day. There were some wildfires up in northern Minnesota and Canada. Some of it was a little bit natural. It just really accentuates the colors and the haze in this image. So next up, this was a trip to Badlands in South Dakota. I love the Badlands. They're not too far from Minnesota, about 7 or 8 hour drive, and I just love the looks of the roads, the sky, the grass, the Badlands. So this was shot in Portra 400. Not a film I shoot very often, but I liked how this turned out. So again, my top 3 shots from June. Now for July, I loved this shot of these 2 boys fishing on Kodak Gold 200 with the Fujifilm GW. Here's Lomography Red Scale again. What I really noticed I loved about this film was when it was really sunny and had some very dramatic clouds. I really loved how it looked. Now, I got to shoot this new film. I think some of you may have shot it before, but the Lomography Color 92. I shot a couple rolls of it in the summer, and this was my favorite shot for sure. I just loved these flowers and how it looked. The pinks looked very kind of subtle and sublime, in my opinion. So again, here are my top 3 for July. Now for August, here's my top 3. This is Kodak Ektar 100 on the Bronica SQA. I loved how this turned out with the very shallow depth of field, kind of focus in the middle of the frame, and then the girl in the background. It almost makes it feel like she is like miniature against this gigantic world. I just loved how that turned out. Definitely one of my favorites. Here's Lomography Turquoise. This is at the Minnesota Arboretum. They have a lot of great flowers this time of year, and I really enjoyed taking a lot of photos on this film. This was by far my favorite. So this is at the Minnesota State Fair on Kodak T-Max 100. Definitely one of my favorite black and white films. I just love how the gradations of black and white and grays on that film render, and this was my favorite shot from going to the Minnesota State Fair. So again, here are my top 3 from August. I'm sure you can see a trend. For September, I again shoot some red scale. I liked how this sunset over the water turned the sky very this crimson color. So I thought it looked cool on the Fuji GW690. Now here's a shot. I definitely love this shot, and I think it's something that doesn't do well to present on something like Instagram, because when it's a small image, it's hard to see. But I really liked the distant light on the roadway and then lots of shadows and silhouettes. I personally liked this shot. It's the Lomography Color 92 on the Fuji GW690. I've shared this photo on this channel before, but went on a photo walk to look for fall colors at the time and brought Lomography Lomochrome Purple and thought it'd be fun to see how the trees looked. And this is one of my favorite shots from that. So here are my top 3 for September. Now for October of 23, these are all going to be from my trip to Arizona. This is shot on Kodak Ektar 100 on the Nikon N80. This was in a small town called Superior. Just saw this little yard of these old cars, and the sun was setting, and I thought it looked really nice. This was a spot where we stopped off the side of the road, got this photo of this. I love how the sunlight was hitting the mountain in the background, and then this old rusty windmill on Kodak Gold 200 with the Fuji GW. So this was in Jerome, Arizona. I really liked this building. I liked the grass, this old abandoned building, and then you could see the mountains in the background, some power lines in the sky. I just really loved this photo. Shot on Kodak Ektar 100 and the Nikon N80. So again, these are my top 3 from October. Now for November of 23, I did a video on this film, the Kodak Ektachrome 5071 slide duplication film. It's a really fun film to shoot, especially kind of at blue hour, golden hour, and it really over exaggerates the sky. It definitely didn't look like this in person, but I loved how it turned out. Now this was one of my top kind of posts on social media, but I loved the layers in this. This was Ilford XB2 as a local ski hill was preparing for the season by making some snow, and I just liked kind of all the fog and haze and different layers here. So really enjoyed this. This was on Ilford XB2 and the Olympus XA2. Now, I made a trip down to Florida to go see at Universal Studios the Halloween Horror Nights, and there's a lot of cool shots I really liked from that. I shot some Kodak Portra 800. I haven't shot a lot of that at night, but I actually have a film photography friend who swears by it, so I've been kind of trying it out. So again, here are my top 3 favorite from November. For December, this is, again, you saw from November the ski hill. And so this is kind of that ski hill kind of far away with a lake in the background with the silhouette of the tree on Lomochrome purple. And I really like this shot. I'm excited to shoot more purple in both the winter and at night. So as you can see, this next shot was again on purple. We didn't have much natural snow. It's been kind of a weird winter in Minnesota so far, but really enjoyed the look. It was a very hazy, foggy day by the lake, and I loved how the purple turned out here. And last but not least, I tried that new film from Harman, the Phoenix 200, and I thought this was an interesting film, especially when it's getting close to kind of golden hour. It has these punchy oranges and reds, and then the sky has this weird, not natural blue. Hard to describe, but it's kind of like this kind of more muted turquoise or teal color, but really enjoyed it. So again, these are my top 3 favorite photos from December, and that's all from the entire year of my favorite photos. So now I want to share a couple of reflections on photography. So one of the things I really want to I've been thinking about and want to continue this year is really staying curious and experimental. I think my enjoyment from photography is still kind of being a little bit of a novice, or kind of think of it as an amateur. I mean, I've been taking photos all my life, and I've done some of it as a job, but most of it as our hobby. But I think where I really enjoy photography is when I'm curious and learning and trying things and experimenting and not afraid to fail. So that kind of brings me to my next point, is I think that I care more about the emotional impact of an image, and I think that's more important or better than technical perfection. You know, whether it's like how you shoot the film, whether it's you're shooting digital, like shooting raw, doing all the perfect settings. Imperfections can affect mood and the feeling of an image, and that's way more important. And I want to continue that. And I really admire other people's work that embrace the imperfections. And then this, like, I feel this way about myself, and I hope others are this way, but don't gatekeep photography. I think it's important to, we're all beginners at one time. And so I don't think there's any stupid questions with film. Some people are learning for the first time, and it's great that there's a lot of younger people who are into film right now because it's keeping it alive. And that's you have to do that for a hobby or passion. For it to continue on, you need new people. The other thing too, I've shot almost 100 different film stocks, and none of them, I don't think there's a best one. And I think there's different ones for your preferences or the mood or feeling you're trying to get from them. And that's what's beautiful about it. That's what I liked about a little bit of the baked in look is if you use it for a certain purpose, then it shines. And I like finding out what those are. Like, is this film great at night? Is this film good at daytime? Is it good for portraits? Can you get weird effects from it? And what can you learn from that? And last, I have a typo, but nothing is unphotographable. And what I mean by that is, like, I think sometimes we fall in the trap with social media or thinking you always need like the most perfect image or you need to go to the most epic place. But I think it's most important to document where you are, what you're experiencing in life, and just go out there and take photos. And sometimes it might take a while to get to the place where you capture the thing that's interesting. But no matter where you live, I mean, I grew up in Ohio. I live in Minnesota now. I sometimes have been in places that are beautiful and epic to see, and others that just have a mundaneness or maybe something that's not so like recognizable, but there's a beauty in that and you need to find it as a photographer. So next I want to talk about a few plans for this channel and some upcoming content I have. So I'm going to be doing a few more film deep dives here soon. Fujichrome T64 is one of my favorite films I've shot, so I'm going to do a video on that. Kodak Ektar 100 is my most shot film, so I plan on making a full video on that. RIP Fuji Color Pro 400H, but I want to do a video on that. A couple other things. I've done some film guides and comparisons. I have some low chromes at night, so like purple, turquoise, red scale, all those at night. I eventually plan on making maybe like a best film for spring because I've done that for both fall and winter now, so I'll likely put something together for that, as well as more like film versus film videos. I have a couple of travel films I want to put together. I went to a couple of national parks over the last couple of years and shot on film. So I have Utah national parks, Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota are kind of the main ones recently. So as well as a couple of cities with charm, as I call them, Nashville and New Orleans. I got a lot of great photos that I've been meaning to share and make a video about. And then I've done a couple of international trips that I want to share some of the photos I've taken. Two main ones are Costa Rica and India. As well as getting into some digital stuff, I made a video on Kodak Ektachrome 5071. I'm going to make a longer video about the digital film recipe I made on my Fuji film, as well as film versus digital, where I shoot film and then I have like the digital recipe that I kind of make side by side and show you that process. And then even some like film versus iPhone, I have like film convert and have tested out some stuff like that. Other ideas I want to do like interviews and conversations. I have a lot of friends here in the Minnesota community that I want to take the time to kind of interview on camera, as well as maybe some other people outside of Minnesota and talk to them on like a Zoom call. And so that I might bring that into the channel, as well as do some photography on location videos. One of my favorite film photographers is Nick Carver. And so I know I'm not original in this idea, but I love the idea of going to a single location, make a video about just photographing that location. So I might do a couple of those videos. And then some more like silent videos of just photography. I like kind of that calming type of photography. So I want to do some more of that type of video content, and hope you like it. But ultimately, I do have the question of what do you want to see, or what have you liked so far? So please make a comment down below if you've seen my videos or watched my content, and to let me know what you like or would like to see more of after you've watched this video, especially after you've seen my film spreadsheet and all the different films I've shot, and see like, are there certain ones that you really want to see? So thank you again. Happy New Year. And I hope you have an amazing 2024.